Climate change will be irreversible by 2030. According to a report conducted by the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, urgent action is needed to avoid the catastrophic events of global warming. Without change, the world's coral reefs will be completely eradicated, and we will see an increase of widespread flooding, extreme heat, drought, and poverty. Climate change and shifts in ecological conditions could support the spread of pathogens, parasites, and diseases, with potentially serious effects on humans. Along with that, storms will be far more common with little time to clean up between each one, and the levels of the oceans will rise, so when there are floods, more land will be covered by the water. Many communities will get destroyed. More than 1 million species will face extinction. This is a loss of biodiversity. Biodiversity is a scientific word used to define life sustained in a specific area. For example, the ocean, or a rainforest, or all life in Canada. A specific case, but that would mean insects, plants, birds, people, and any other living things you could think of in that area, Canada, for example. This loss of biodiversity will reduce water quality and food security, and it also results in a loss of natural pest control as predators like frogs and spiders when they become extinct. And this is what's coming for us, starting for real in 6 years. No one likes to hear what will happen because no one wants to live like this. There is no change in the way people act when they learn that they are responsible for climate change and can help reduce it, because many people believe that one person does not change anything. But you affect the people you live around. You affect the people you live with. You affect your friends, your family, the people you work with, the people you go to school with, people that your friends are friends with, the people that your family are friends with. Everyone, believe it or not. Your words and actions are picked up on. And even if you don't believe me, it's often done subconsciously, by others who you see daily or even weekly. It's a human instinct to copy the actions of those around us. Think of the habits you've developed, what was said or what was thought that made you do those things. Often the habits you have were not made from you and your own ideas, but formed by the opinions of others. Whether you believe it or not, we, as individual people, are directly responsible for the increase of climate change. You ever heard that there are too many people in the world? That's the main reason for climate change. No, we can't kill people, but humans take more than they need. If you go out to dinner with a group of people, there is never a time when everyone finishes their food. Something is always left on their plate. How many clothes do you have in your closet? Or how many do you like or choose to wear? Or how much trash is in your local city? You'll often find trash right next to the trash can. People don't recycle correctly or at all. It isn't always an option to recycle depending on your town. I'm not blaming people for these things. There are large serving portions at restaurants. Most of my clothes are hand-me-downs or gifts, and China decided to cut recycling a while ago. However, we can work with things when they aren't right. For a long time, we have been given too much. Capitalism asks for more and more. Here is how to take less, a way to combat climate change. 1. About food. Like I said, at restaurants it can be harder to reduce waste, but you can order less. Eat an appetizer instead of an entree if you already know that their serving sizes are big. Be prepared to finish all of your food, and if you can't, don't order it. Tell others the same, in a polite way, obviously. 2. Clothing. It takes 700 gallons of water to create just one cotton t-shirt, and 1,800 gallons of water to make one pair of jeans. One small decision about donating or recycling clothing can make a huge difference for the planet, in your community, and for your wallet. Thrifting can be super cheap, almost just as cheap as those online stores you find like Shein or literally any store. Every store you can buy out of, it almost guaranteed is fast fashion unless they pride themselves in something else. It's kind of fashion, fast fashion. Take like online brands that are like $40 or less, relatively. Although it's probably a lot of other stores as well. Their clothing, the dyes are synthetic and pollute the environment and air when they go and get trashed, because like tons of these clothing are discarded by not only the people wearing them but by the factories, and they don't need them because they don't reuse the materials at all. They just continue recreating, and these fabrics often contain microplastics, because if your clothing says it has polyester is plastic. Polyester has microplastics in it, and when microplastics eventually travel and end up in the ocean, when these things are being shipped, if those clothing ever ends up in the ocean, or even not, but when they end up in the ocean, they're a threat to zooplankton and phytoplankton, which is the base of life for marine animals. And if once you hurt the main part of the marine food chain, then you end up hurting tons of other animals, causing more animals to become extinct from losing a vital part of their food chain, and also other animals being choked and not having enough space to swim. It's like polluting the air with these microplastics floating around. It's not safe for them. And if you shop online, you can do that too for thrifting. You can buy secondhand from Depop, Vinted, ThredUp, Poshmark, or eBay. While searching for clothing, make sure your search is for used clothing. You don't want to buy brand new clothing, because those are also sold on secondhand sites. 3. Trash and recycling. Your town is responsible for what they do with their trash and whether they recycle. Here's a simple explanation on how to recycle correctly. And you can find different recycling organizations, because as people we have to do them ourselves if your town doesn't supply one for you. You can go through TerraCycle or other ones that may or may not be available in your town or maybe the next town over. Separate your recycling. One group should be plastic bottles, caps, cans, plastic containers, disposable dishes and cutlery, metal scraps, and foil. The second group is mostly papers. Newspapers, magazines, envelopes, cardboard boxes, folders, egg cartons, and scrap paper. The third group is jars, glass bottles, and glass containers. And before you put your recycling in, you have to make sure there's no liquid in the recycling, and you should separate these groups and how you dispose of them. Just put them in 3 separate bags. Your recyclables should be clean, no extra food or drink on them, because when there is, they will be discarded. If any kind of contamination is in the bag, a lot of recycling companies will discard that entire bag and it turns into trash. So it's important to recycling. And composting. About 37 million tons of food waste were brought to landfills in 2015. It's about equal to the weight of 100 Empire State Buildings. This is in America. In landfills, food is broken down and decomposed by bacteria and not by oxygen. The lack of oxygen leads to producing methane gas. The effects of methane are stronger on the earth and global warming than carbon dioxide. Composting is a better way to discard food scraps because it allows the food to decompose with oxygen, so no methane is produced. The way to compost, the easier way to compost, there's 2 ways to compost. You can compost naturally in your own backyard if you have the availability. You can take its own bin. You add basically just a little bit of dirt on top of the food. You can do vegetable scraps, fruit scraps. You can do egg cartons. You could do meat, but probably not if you're doing it from home, so no animals steal from you. If you'd like, you can look into composting in your area. Composting has become really common recently. It's definitely within your major cities. New York City has a big thing of it. If there's farmer markets in your area, you can look into, just go to a farmer's market and ask people. Those are the people who know where compost is. Normally they're in these kind of bins, put your food scraps in. And I think unless you're doing meat, everything else I mentioned, you just put it in one. You put it in that bin and you're good to go. Compost will pick it up for you probably like weekly, and they will deal with it. And it is a better way to sustain the earth, because instead of making synthetic dirt, which people often do, wasting extra space for landfills, we can regrow that earth with the dirt that we produce. It is much more natural to the way it was originally working when humans had less impact on the earth and we were not producing so many gases into the air. I've been terrified for my life, and I know everyone is in this time period. It's so scary being alive. And out of fear, we need to act. You need to act as an individual. Because like I said, you are important. Everyone's actions are important, singularly. You need to not be afraid to speak up for these things, because the future of our earth, the future of your children, and so forth depends on it. If you'd like to be dying when you're older, you can. But absolutely every action matters. And these are a few of the basic actions you can take in your life right now to help our environment and our futures immensely. Thank you for your time. God bless.